Hello, I'm Laura Dempsey, Managing Director of Terabyte IT Limited. I'm here to talk to you today because data protection is changing. So, why is a cybersecurity company talking to you about data protection? Well, we protect data across your kit. That is the essence of cybersecurity. So, cyber protection is a standard and no longer an option, as I will go on to explain. But I'm going to give you an overview of cybersecurity just to show you how things fit together for the start. I'd like you to imagine that this is the size of the internet, that every dot of light is a connection to it. Now, if there is a way out, then there is a way in, and that's what we protect against. Now, within the space, is people just doing business and chatting socially online and causing nobody any harm at all. And then there's the guys that send out these. We all have a junk mail folder. We all get spam emails. There's also phishing emails within those where people try to access your system by sending false links for staff to click on. So you need to be aware of those as well. And then there's these guys. But is this a good guy or a bad guy? Well, if you are an ethical hacker, the same as the operations director of Terabyte, then you're actually a good guy who advises businesses where the holes are or gaps within the security by using the same skills as the hackers to show the vulnerabilities and help you show them up and keep them out. Now, there's also staff awareness and training needed, because there is no point in having antivirus and encryption and two-factor authentication and all of those software products or the ethical hacking services if the staff somehow let them in the back door. So a balanced view on products and training is required to get an all-round view. So an overview of GDPR. I've dealt with the confusion around GDPR for about 2 years now. There's a lot of people still not quite sure exactly what they should be doing. I meet people who've never heard of it still. And in March 2018, that's a little bit worrying. So hence I'm creating this webinar to hopefully spread some of the actual information, get rid of some of the myths and help you have those conversations with your clients and make things a little bit easier. So it stands for the General Data Protection Regulation. The easiest way of explaining it is that it's the replacement of the Data Protection Act, but that's not actually true. What's happening is our current Data Protection Act will be transformed by the new regulations, and as we stand in March 2018, the Data Protection Bill that's going through Parliament will determine the new version and what our new Data Protection Act will look like as a result. So why has the law changed? It's because of these. Basically, the economy is struggling because of all of the data breaches and something had to be done. So the UK and Germany got together and with some minimal assistance from the other EU states, they came up with GDPR. So there are changes for reporting breaches that we need to be aware of. It's going to be 72 hours, which if you have a breach on a Friday night is not a great amount of time in order to report it. So we need to be aware of that. Now the preparation time for GDPR, which is 2 years, ends on the 25th of May 2018, which at this point is 2 months away, just less. So the transition window is nearly up at this point. Which companies are affected is what I usually get asked the most. Well, the Information Commissioner, Elizabeth Denham, said that if you hold a single piece of personally identifiable information on a data subject, then the company is in scope. A data subject could be a client or an employee. I don't know a business who doesn't hold the name or email address of a client or an employee. I've tried very hard to come up with an example of one and I've failed utterly. Every company's got to comply if they want to have GDPR correct across their systems and protect their business. So name and email address is enough, and that's before we get to sensitive information like number of holidays and sick days and bank information and tax information. Everybody's got to do it. So what advice do we need then to get it right? You need legal, data protection, privacy and cybersecurity at the minimum, with marketing and insurance advice a really good look. Now that's quite a lot of advice, so let me explain why that's needed. First of all, here's the graphic from the Information Commissioner's Office, which they have sent out. This is readily available on the internet. You can get this quite easily, and it's 12 steps to start looking at in order to implement it. I'm going to jump to point 7, which is consent. This is one of the 6 legal bases for processing data. There are others such as contract and legitimate interest. You do not have to choose consent, and if you don't have to, then you probably shouldn't. However, you still have to implement the double opt-in for consent across your company sign-up forms and marketing information, regardless of which one you choose for a legal basis, or something to be aware of. And then point 9 of data breaches, that's where the cybersecurity sector are heavily involved, but not obviously. So I'll point that out as well. The absolute best thing that you can do is make sure that the decision makers and key people in your organisation are aware that the law is changing the GDPR, which is point 1, awareness. They have to appreciate the impact that this is likely to have upon them. What it's about is about helping the client to build a defensible position with regards to the regulation by implementing technical and organisational measures. So there's a lot that goes in that is involved with that. And if the guys at the top don't know about it, then that's a bit of a problem. For Terabyte, when we found out about GDPR, it was just after May 2016 when we attended some mandatory training as a reseller. Now, company directors are actually being made directly responsible for this as part of GDPR. So the guys at the top need to know. Okay, point 10, data protection by design and data protection impact assessments. That's a good place to start. Having a look at what data you hold and how the regulation can impact on your business. It's a good place to start for the board of directors once they know how they're going to go ahead. I find that infographic hurts people's eyes quite a lot, so I tend to type it out so that you can flick onto this and make notes easily. So there's the 12 points in their bullet point form for you. Now, data protection and privacy under GDPR, the way to think of it is it's about protecting data from its creation until its destruction in all of its formats, including when it leaves you, when you send it out. This means that under GDPR, you have to be sure that your supply chain is also protecting the data when it leaves you and goes to them. Now, that's a conversation for legal and insurance with regards to who's liable. Not getting involved in that, not my forte, but I know it's a thing, and that's why you need the legal and the insurance that we recommend. So how are we going to achieve all of this? Well, we have a route to compliance for you. We use the Cyber Essentials scheme. Now, this is recommended by the Information Commissioner's Office, who are the regulator. These are the guys who will be enforcing this. Cyber Essentials is like an MOT for your business rather than your car. If something's wrong with your car, you take it to the garage, they tell you what's wrong with it, and then you have the work carried out. Cyber Essentials works the same way. There are different levels to Cyber Essentials. We use the version through IASME. With their governance, it meets the minimum mandatory requirements for GDPR from a cybersecurity point of view, and with some help from data protection and privacy professionals, you can get it right from the start. I'm going to flick back a slide a moment and explain the Plus. The Plus version is where an external auditor has come in and verified that what has been done is correct. Now, this forms part of our minimum requirements for accepting a supplier here at Terabyte. So it gets rid of the people who've gone and found out the answers and achieved a certificate but actually haven't done the work. So we promote the plus as part of our checks for suppliers. There are other certifications. It's not mandatory to have Cyber Essentials to achieve GDPR, but it's the process that we've chosen because we know it works. It's also a really good stepping stone for achieving ISO 27001. It's brilliant to put in the building blocks in place for that. Now, with this certification, you actually get free cyber liability insurance provided you satisfy the terms and conditions. So there's levels, and there's a certain amount. It's 25k it goes up to. If you're domiciled in the UK and your turnover then less than 20 million is the current requirements where we stand in March 2018. So that's a nice little extra to have as part of the certificate. So I'm going to show you why you need all of that advice. An example for you. Okay, so let's say we've got the company sorted, we've got GDPR implemented, and we've got everything correct and ready to go across the board. But now we've had a disaster recovery event, and somebody is waving an encryption key at us saying, we've stolen all of your data, you need to pay us to get it back. Well, we're not going to pay them, because then they'll ask for some more money, and then they'll ask for some more money, and then they'll keep asking for money. So no, we're not going to pay them. We are going to use our trusty backups that we have for such things. So we've wiped the system, we've put the backups in place, and the company's working again. Okay. However, we've now got the customers who have exercised their new right to be forgotten, have repopulated, and unless we have a process in place to remove them, then they will get the marketing information that they have expressly indicated that they do not wish to have by exercising their right to be forgotten. So how are we going to manage that? So on the sign-up forms that you've got to have the right legal information on the bottom about how long you hold the data for, and you've got to consider how long their information is in the backups for in order to get that correct. So we need a process for removing new right to be forgotten repopulated people after a disaster recovery event, and we need to know the right information that we can hold in the suppression list in order to make sure that that happens and do it legally and legitimately under GDPR. So your suppression list needs to have the right amount of information, it's got to have the right legal basis, and you need to have the cybersecurity advice for the process to make sure that it's all done correctly as well. So that's your legal, your privacy, your data protection, and your cybersecurity right there. And also your marketing, the company needs to be aware of all of that and how you can market under the right rules as well, with the insurance a really good look in case somehow something has gone wrong somewhere, which things do happen now and again. So that's why we recommend all of that advice. And that's just one example of how GDPR is changing people's systems. I'm going to give you a free tip as a thank you for listening to my presentation this far. You need to know where data can safely be held as well as part of the GDPR. So the EU 28, of which the UK is still currently one, all of those countries are deemed to be safe. There are an additional 15 whitelisted countries which are located outside of the EU that have data protection laws that fully comply with the requirements of GDPR as well. These come under two categories of special close trading agreements and then countries that have laws that meet the principles of GDPR as well. What you have to do is check if you're using one of these 15 countries, is check that the company that you are using subscribes to the data protection law. So for example, in the US, you can go on the Privacy Shield and you can check whether or not the company is listed as complying with the data protection law or if they've subscribed to it. So if you've got a company that you're using that doesn't, then you've got a problem and you need to have a look into it. So that's Laura Dempsey of Terabyte IT, where cyber protection is a standard, no longer an option under the new GDPR rules. Thank you very much for your time.